Today we are going to start with chapter 7.5, infrastructure. What is infrastructure? You all might be knowing. Yes, infrastructure means all the auxiliaries to trade, that is all the supporting facilities that help in enhancing the activities of trade and commerce. All the back supporting activities which help in increasing trade and commerce is known as infrastructure. This basically includes means of transport, means of communication. Okay, so let us start. Infrastructure refers to all such services and facilities which are needed to provide different kinds of services in an economy and which are essential in raising the place of economic growth of the country. See, it's very simple. Trade and commerce are the integral part of an economy. Okay, so if trade and commerce is increasing, so the country is having more productivity, the country is having more GDP, more income, more per capita income. Thus, we are moving towards economic development. So, infrastructure and development have a direct relationship. Development of infrastructure leads to development of country. I proceed. It contributes to economic development of a country both by raising the productivity of factors of production and improving the quality of life of its people. It provides supporting services in the main areas of industrial and agricultural production, domestic and foreign trade and commerce. So overall, infrastructure includes means of transport, means of communication. Now, after understanding what is infrastructure, let us understand how can we categorize infrastructure. So, infrastructure can be basically categorized into two headings: economic infrastructure and social infrastructure. Economic infrastructure would include transport, power, communication, irrigation and watershed management, science and technology, and financial institutions. On the other hand, social infrastructure includes education, health, housing, civic amenities, law and order, etc. What are these? Let us see in detail. Now let us see in detail what is the difference between social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. All the means of transport and communication, they directly affect the speed of economic growth. So all these things are termed under economic infrastructure. And health and education, which indirectly affects the speed of economic activities, they are termed under social infrastructure. So let us see the difference. Social infrastructure, it helps the economic system from outside, that is indirectly. Economic infrastructure, it helps the economic system from inside, that is directly. Then social infrastructure, example health, education and housing. Economic infrastructure, example energy, transport and communication structure. Social infrastructure, it improves the quality of human resource, and economic infrastructure, it improves the quality of economic resource. This is the basic difference between social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. And always remember, whenever we are writing difference, it has always into be written in the form of columns. Importance of infrastructure. See, if I'm teaching you all and if I need to have the best result, then there are some common things, common amenities I need. That is a good teacher, a good place to sit, a healthy environment, proper books and copies. Okay, so these are basic things required for getting the result from you. Similarly, when the country has to attain economic development, then it needs to have the basic means of transport and communication which can increase the speed pace of economic activities, and all these things we get from infrastructure. So now we are going to talk about importance of infrastructure. The first point, infrastructure raises productivity. The whatever economic resource we have, till and until we don't have the amenities to use this resource, we cannot get the output out of it. So infrastructure, by the means of good transport, good communication, we are able to increase the productivity of the economic resource which we have. Then it provides employment. Whenever infrastructure has to be developed, these are huge product projects, and they need a lot of people in coming into operation. So infrastructure is providing employment to large number of people. Just imagine if one day the transportation is not there, the whole economy will be standstill, and transport is an integral part of infrastructure. So infrastructure is providing employment, and we can say that infrastructure is the employment is the vein of infrastructure, vein of economy. In the absence of transportation, the economy cannot operate. So these type of facilities, transport, communication, these type of facilities, they cannot operate on their own. They need human beings for operation. Thus infrastructure is helping in providing employment. Then infrastructure induces foreign investments. See, a country which has good infrastructure, foreign investors are interested in investing in that country because they know the pace of growth is high there. That is why infrastructure is helping in getting the foreign investments. I hope I am clear. Next, infrastructure raises the ability to work. I am telling you, you have to do a business. I don't give you office. I don't give you a phone. I don't give you any of the facilities required. And then I tell you that you have to work. There is no internet, no phone. Can you do it? No, you cannot do. So infrastructure is helping in improving the ability of the person by giving them all the amenities that can help to pace up the speed of work and economic growth. Okay, next. It facilitates outsourcing. For better infrastructure, we need better human resource. We may have this human resource with us, or we may hire this human resource from some other country. And hiring the resources from other countries, basically human resource, and harnessing them for our development is known as outsourcing. So infrastructure is helping in facilitating outsourcing. Next point, it raises economic development. See, infrastructure is a vein of economy. If vein is pumping and taking the blood properly, sorry, not pumping, taking the blood properly, body will function properly. So if infrastructure is good, definitely economic development is going to increase. It raises the size of market. Better means of transport, better means of communication makes more people, more areas uh, where we can sell our products. So it is increasing the size of market, and now the size of market is the global world. Because of infrastructure, now it is very easy to export and import the things from outer world. So infrastructure is raising the size of the market, and now the size of the market has become whole globe. And lastly, it generates linkages in production. Definitely better infrastructure will lead to better production. More production will give rise to more links which can still help in enhancement of production. So this is importance of infrastructure. So a country having good infrastructure will definitely have better development. That is why every country, and especially a developing country like India, is working more and more on development of infrastructure. Now let us talk about the state of infrastructure in India. India invests approximately 5% of its GDP on infrastructure, which is far below than that of China and Indonesia. See, we all know that India is a developing country. So definitely the amount of percentage of GDP that should be invested in infrastructure should be more. As we have already seen that infrastructure and economic development have direct relationship, but still we are only investing 5% of our GDP on infrastructure. So in coming future, we need to increase it. With government, private sector in partnership with public sector is also playing a very important role in the infrastructure development. See, this you can understand it with a very simple example, that when we move on the roads or to the place which is where development is going on, many a time we see that people are working there and some banners of some company are kept. See, road is a public property. It is a property which is owned by the government. But some private company is working over it. How come a private company is working over the project of government? This is happening due to concept which what you must have studied in your BS, that is PPP, public private partnership. The developmental work of the country is the responsibility of government, but government has handed over the operational work to a private company. So PPP, public private partnership, plays an important role in the development of infrastructure in developing country like India. I'm coming to next point. India needs to develop its infrastructure, especially in the areas of rural energy requirement, water, basic amenities, and sanitation. And regarding this, already we have seen so many poverty alleviation programs, employment generation programs, which are emphasizing on clean drinking water facility, then rural electrification, providing education, schooling to the children, etc. So all these things are also a part of infrastructure. Coming further, let us talk about energy. As food is giving energy to the body to perform work, similarly, our economy needs energy for running its factories and industries. So, what is energy? Energy is the lifeline of all production activities. Rapid growth in agriculture and industrial sector is not possible without it. So, energy is the base. Energy can be in the form of electricity. This is the most common form. Now, what are the sources of energy? Let us just see. The first type of energy is commercial source, and just opposite to it in the bottom you can see commercial source, and below that is non-commercial source. So what are commercial sources of energy and what are non-commercial sources of energy? Commercial sources of energy are those sources which are being purchased, a price is being paid for using those resources. For example, coal, petroleum, electricity. We pay money if we want to use this. So these are known as commercial sources. On the other hand, those sources which are available free of cost, like sunlight, wind power, okay, these are available free of cost. So when sunlight is converted into solar energy, this is something for which we are you can say sunlight is available free of cost. So for sunlight we are not paying any money, but yes, when we are converting sunlight into solar energy, we have to pay some minimal amount. So again it will be a part of commercial source. But there are some free gifts of nature for which we are not paying any money, like wood which we get from trees, okay, then dried dung, etc. These sources for which we are not paying a price, they are categorized into non-commercial sources of energy. So one type of categorization is commercial sources and non-commercial sources. Now if you can see towards my left, you can see the second type of sources of energy is conventional source of energy and non-conventional source of energy. So conventional source of energy means those sources of energy which we are using from a long period of time, and non-conventional sources of energy means those sources of energy whose use we have learnt recently. For example, from a very long time we are using coal and petroleum, so that is the example of conventional source of energy. Whereas solar energy, wind energy, now still we are trying to learn how to use geothermal energy. So all these whose use we have learned recently, these can be used as a source of energy, but we have learned it recently. So all these resources would be categorized under non-conventional sources of energy. So there are basically two ways of classification of sources of energy: commercial sources and non-commercial sources, conventional sources and non-conventional sources. So let us talk about power or electricity in detail. What what is the main use of electricity? See, we use electricity in our homes for operating various equipments, like mixer, television, fridge. This is the domestic use of electricity. At the same time, all the manufacturing firms run machines with the help of electricity. So electricity is a main source of power for an economy. So let us come to the slide. The most visible form of energy, which is often identified with progress in modern civilization, is power or electricity. Now, what are the sources of energy? Energy means electricity. See, basically we get electricity from many modes, but we are using four main modes. If we generate electricity by burning of coal, it is known as thermal electricity. If we generate electricity by moving water, then it is called hydroelectricity. If we generate electricity by movement of wind, then it is called wind power. And if we generate electricity by nuclear fission and fusion that takes place inside an atom, then we call it as nuclear power. So 70% of the electricity in India is still coming from traditional way, that is by burning of coal. So thermal power consists of 70% of the total electricity generation in the country. 28% comes from water and wind, and 2% is coming from nuclear power. So this is the composition of electricity sources from where electricity is obtained. Now, when we talk about India, we know that India is a developing country and India is facing certain challenges in the power sector. What are these challenges? Let us discuss it. First is insufficient installed capacity. The demand for electricity is more, but the capacity which is installed, which can generate electricity, is less. So, when demand is more and supply is less, always there will be shortage of electricity in India. That is why, to cope up with the situation, many a time power cuts are there. Second point, underutilization of capacity. सोने पे सुहागा, एक तो पहले ही हमारे पास कैपेसिटी कम है और जितनी है उसको भी हम पूरी तरह से यूज नहीं कर पा रहे, दैट इज अंडर यूटिलाइज्ड. सो वट एवर कैपेसिटी द इलेक्ट्रिक स्टेशन हैव, if they are not able to harness it due to lack of technology or maybe due to lack of resource or manpower, whatsoever may be the reason, this is again one of the challenges which is very prominent in the power sector in India. Next, losses incurred by state electricity boards. Today only I was watching news, and I have seen that Modi ji has again given some rebates to state electricity boards to overcome losses. Now the question is that why is the state electricity board facing a loss? They are facing a loss because people do theft of electricity. They do manipulation with the meter installed, by which they have to pay to the electricity department. So due to all these issues, state electricity board is under loss. So this is again one of the biggest problem which the power sector is facing. Public unrest. People are so aggressive in India that whenever there are some issues, they damage the properties, especially the pillars with the help of which electricity is transmitted. So public unrest is again one of the reason for losses to the power sector. Then shortage of raw material. Right now we have seen that 70% of the electricity in India is coming from thermal power, that is by burning coal. We don't have the best quality of coal with us in majority, so we have to import it. And when the raw material is not available, whenever there is a shortage of raw material, that is coal, then definitely that is going to affect the power generation adversely. Next, transmission and distribution losses. When electricity is transmitted from the tower to our homes, a part of electricity is absorbed by the atmosphere. So there is a need to develop some insulated wires which can help in minimizing or completely removing this transmission and distribution losses. And last is operational inefficiency. The power stations which are generating electricity are not able to operate properly. They are not operating up to their full efficiency. Thus all these things, when come together, when they accumulate together, they create severe problem for the electricity generation for a developing country like India, which is adversely affecting the development of the country. No doubt that India, being developing country, is facing um, challenges in the power sector. At the same time, we can make some measures to overcome this challenge of uh, power scarcity. Okay, so the first is we should take steps to reduce transmission and distribution losses. I have already explained you that new types of wires and new technology can be used to see that less amount of electricity is absorbed by the atmosphere during transmission. This, to a certain extent, can reduce the loss of power which is there during transmission. Second is improve plant load factor. If we are improving the plant load factor, it will improve and enhance the capacity of the electricity stations to produce more electricity. This will help in reducing the scarcity or the shortage of power. Next, promote the use of CFLs and LEDs to save energy. When we are not using CFL and LEDs, when we are using a normal tube light or normal bulb, it is consuming more energy. But when we use CFLs and LEDs, they are giving more light in consumption by consuming less energy, less electricity. So we should promote more and more use of CFLs and LEDs to save electricity. Next is encourage private sector participation. Only state electricity boards are there in the country which are producing electricity. No private company except Reliance made an experiment few years back. Beside that, no private company is ready to participate in power generation. The reason being because of all these challenges which we have studied right now. See, it is not yielding profit, but government is giving, the state electricity board is giving us electricity at the cost of loss also, because they are working for the welfare of the country. In the absence of electricity, the whole nation would come to a standstill. So there is requirement that some young entrepreneurs should come ahead and cope up with this problem by participating in electricity generation, so that the load which is there on the state electricity boards can be reduced. Then encouragement to non-conventional sources of energy. Nowadays we all can see solar panels. When we move little bit countryside, we can see windmills. So nowadays people, they themselves are using, and we should encourage our friends, our relatives to use more and more of non-conventional sources of energy, because these are eco-friendly. These are only need to have the installation charge, but once they are installed, like solar panels, only installation charge is one time for a lifetime. Once they are installed, then the cost of generating electricity is too less. So we should encourage ourselves, our friends and our society to use more and more of non-conventional sources of energy. Then biogas generation programs. You all know how is biogas generated. It is generated by dumping all the waste into a pit. It generates gas, and that gas is used, methane gas CH4 is used for generating electricity. So more and more of biogas generation program should be encouraged, and encouragement to FDI, foreign direct investments, and privatization in energy production. So if we are following all these measures, we can overcome the problem faced by the power sector, and I am hoping that very soon India take some severe steps towards it, so that the challenges of the power sector can be completely eradicated.